Morning, we're ready. Find the cookies here. Huh? You find the cookies? Oh my goodness. Who's my title? We go from Sesame Street to okay, I'm going to start with the sponsors and then we'll go on to the shiur. A year of learning by Sue and Arnie Garlick in memory of Malcolm Proman and Philip Mann, Yisrael David ben Arav Tzvi Hirsch, Beryl ben Arav Tzvi Hirsch, Yosef Meir ben Arav Tzvi Hirsch, Henya Rivka Pro Rosna bat Harav Tzvi Hirsch. In memory of family murdered in the Holocaust, Harav Tzvi Hirsch ben Shlomo Yaakov, Sarah bat Ephraim, Yisrael David ben Arav Tzvi Hirsch, Ephraim ben Arav Tzvi Hirsch, Adia bat Harav Tzvi Hirsch, Miriam bat Harav Tzvi Hirsch, Pesel bat Harav Tzvi Hirsch, Shalom ben Harav Tzvi Hirsch, Shlomo Yaakov ben Harav Tzvi Hirsch, Shmuel ben Harav Tzvi Hirsch. Leslie and Gail Kaplan, in memory of their parents, Harry and Marjorie Sedell, Irving and Pearl Kaplan. Children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren of Toby Paris, Sarah Tova bat Yisrael Dov in her memory. Charlie Gelfenstein and Sam Levine in memory of Ramona Levine, Rachel Mata bat Asher. Friends of Nina Moynester, Nechama Azna bat Yitzchak Ahalo. Many friends of Stephen Vigdor, Lezecha Nishmat Simcha Melech ben Meir Leib Halevi. Friends of Marcy Kurtz in memory of her great niece, Leah Bracha. A month of learning by the friends of Lydia and Abe Krause in honor of their 50th anniversary. Malin Haran Haller in memory of his father, his mother, Fega Bas Yaakov. B. Pizer in memory of her stepfather, Avram Michal ben Shmuel Halevi. Josh and Carol Sanborn in memory of his parents, Chana bat Aryeh Leib, Shmuel Aryeh ben Baruch. Jill and Perry Meltzer in memory of her father, Yaakov ben Yosef. A week of learning by Charlie Gelfenstein and Sam Levine in memory of Charlie's wife and Sam's sister, Menucha Sarah bat Yechiel Michal, and in memory of Sam's mother and Charlie's mother-in-law, Zissel bat Yehoshua. Evelyn and Isaac Blachor in memory of her mother, Pearl Rivka bat Harab Menachem Mendel. Leonie Meiselman in memory of her husband, Nissen Yitzchak ben Shlomo Zalman. Also have a day of learning today being the 10th of March, Malka Adler and Jack Hirschman in memory of their mother Tzipa Miriam bat Brendel V'Yakov, by Fred and Sharon Lisker in memory of his mother Shifra bat Ephraim, and by Chaya and Shlomo Minzer in memory of her mother Blima bat Lipa. May the Shemas have an Aliyah, Krank, Rafia, Velti, Yeshiva, Shematliya, Kol B'nai Yisrael, Good Geben Shtiar. Also, we include in our thoughts those names that were recited by Rabbi Yaska this morning, individuals who are undergoing surgery, and others who have surgery today as well. Okay. So many members are undergoing surgery? Well, he recited two names of two specific. I mean, I don't know the individuals, but I assume they're members of the show. And I have a niece that's undergoing surgery today as well. 6 years old. What? She should be recover rapidly. Well, unfortunately, it's the second surgery within a week. So hopefully.
You want to give a name?
I have it downstairs. I don't have it with me.
Tomorrow morning, tell it to me. Please.
Okay. So basically, we went through a list quickly of 15 specific categories of women. Okay, and we indicated according to the Gemara, Mishnah and the Gemara, that given the situation, okay, if they are erva, okay, that has an impact on their status, okay, and also it has an impact on the status of any co-wife as well. Okay, so I wanted just to keep that thought in mind, only because as we go into the Gemara, we saw the Gemara then dealt with the question of what about the order of the list? Gemara is going to continue with that particular question, right? And then it's going to go on to a few other items, one of which is, for example, when the Gemara said, when the Mishnah said 15, okay, what does that seem to imply? Okay, in other words, that's the kind of typical question the Bavli might ask.
What else?
Okay, does it mean really these 15? What about others? Or as it says, it's these 15, but in regards to, because we know that there are 21 women that are mentioned in that entire section of Arayos. Okay? What?
Daughter is inferred.
Well, the implication, right? Okay, so that's the point, right? So we stopped really on the bottom of Amud Bet. Okay, we're going to pick up on the top of Gimel, Amud Aleph. Yes,
I
Bob.
mean, just one question from the introduction I went over last night. If a man has, if one of the brothers who is going to be a Hebrew candidate is married, has a wife and children, he still would be responsible for doing.
Yeah, that gives him 2 wives, Baruch Hashem.
Okay. But he can.
That's assuming that he can afford them.
But he can do.
He could do chalitza and pass him
Right,
to
he could
another
do it.
brother.
No.
I know.
Okay, one of the questions ultimately the Gemara is going to raise. Okay, one of the questions the Gemara is going to ultimately raise, which we tried to hint at yesterday, was that when we looked at the Mishnah, remember that it specifically said, okay, on the second line, min hachalitza o min hayibum. Okay, and I pointed out yesterday, why is it that the Mishnah phrased chalitza first? Okay, we're going to have to come back and revisit that issue as well. Okay. Okay, so, sure. All right, so on, okay. No, I know, I'm just looking to see, Alan is online. I don't see Steve online. Steve, are you there? I see Alan.
I'm here.
Yeah, good, very good. Okay, and Ari, I don't know, okay. All right, and Marvin has not been getting online. We'll have to check.
What's the O stand for? His name?
The O,
Marvin O.
I'm not sure what his English name
What's
is.
his Hebrew name?
Ozer.
Ozer? So that's the O.
Well, I don't know. It could
I mean,
be,
it could be.
could be a different thing, you know. Could be Oscar, it could be Otto, could be Orlando. I don't know.
Oliver, I mean, we could sit here all day
Good.
coming up with
Okay.
all names.
So let's come back to the Gemara, please. Okay, so what happens? So notice that the Gemara's initial attempt to give what was the reason of the issue of the order, okay, was that, okay, we saw daughter, things like that, is that essentially the Gemara suggested on the bottom of the Amud of Beis, Amud Beis, that because Kevan de'ita midrasha chavivale, okay, so that because there was this particular drash, and it was he was fond of it, so to speak. That's why he started with the order that he did, daughter, etc., etc., etc. Okay, so the Gemara is going to challenge that initially on the top of Gimel Amud Aleph. Kuhu nami midrasha atu. They all came from a midrash, a drasha. Remember, we said that initially our Gemara has told us that they really all came from one particular pasuk. Okay, and as we're going to see this now. Mehi de le'inyan yibum atyan midrasha. Let us see then that in regards to the topic, the issue of ibum, they all came from a drasha. Ikar isuraihu behedya kativ. Okay, but the prohibition is in regards to each one of them. Okay, kativ baho. Okay, so it's in regards to each one of them. Okay, so what happens? Bito ikar isura midrasha. So the argument the Gemara tries to come back is the fact that he started with the reference to his daughter was because that was the essential
That was
text, okay? Essential, and that determination came clearly from a drash example. The Amar Rabba, and now they're going to share with us what the drash is. The Amar Rabba, Amarli Rav Yitzchak Bar Avdimi. Okay, so Rav Yitzchak Bar Avdimi is basically on the following. I did not bring a chumash with me today, okay, but we're going to see that the basis of the drasha, of the midrash, okay, is based on first.
Footnote 4.
Okay, it's Vayikra 18:10 to 18:17, and then again from Vayikra 18:17 to Vayikra 20:14. Okay, in other words, they're going to cite that. Those are the psukim that they're going to be based on in terms of doing a double gzera shava. Okay, that's the point. All right. So what is the drasha then? Okay, he says acha hena hena, acha zima zima. Okay, so in other words, in one set of psukim, we go from the word hena to the word hena. That's from 18:10 to 18:17. Okay, and then again we go once more from 18:17 to 20:14 with the word zima. Okay, so one gzera shava, okay, based on one word. Okay, one then goes from the second pasuk to another pasuk. Okay, so that's the point that the Gemara is making. So it's clearly based on drasha. Okay, that's the point. Hashta da amart kol milta da acha midrasha. But now that you've said that each item, all of the things are based on drasha, chaviva le, that was what was dear them. If that's the case, litne la'achot isha levaso. So let him wait and teach the issue of achot isha at the end. In other words, if that's the case,
That's just open.
okay. In other words, that's the point. So the Gemara then tells us, "Aide da aide be'isur." Okay, achota, tana achot ishto. Okay, since in this case he was teaching, okay, in each case based on that pasuk, all right. So therefore, it's based on the prohibition of the sister. Okay, so therefore, let him teach that at that point.
That's why he.
Okay, so he puts it there. Okay, so the Gemara then raises a question then. V'litnei lahai baba levasof. So if that's the case, if all of these others are derived from that, I'm going to call it for the moment primary pasuk. Okay, so in other words, take that whole section, says the Gemara. V'litnei lahai baba, that whole section, and teach it. And all the issues dealing with this, put all that at the end. Okay. Elatana kurve naka. Okay, but rather, says the Gemara, coming up with an alternative suggestion. It wasn't so much based on the fact that it was a drasha. It was based on physical or blood relationship, closeness to him. That's what the Gemara says he based it on. Okay, that's what he took it on. So if that's the case, what did he do? Tana Bito, he taught his daughter first. Ubat Bito, Ubat Beno. Then his granddaughter from his daughter, or his granddaughter from his son. In other words, he started with the female relatives that were closest to him and went down. Okay? The Kruve Atzmo, because they are the closest blood relatives to him. Va'ide detana shlosha dorot lamata. And since he taught 3 generations going down, right? Right? So that's the point. Dide, okay, regarding himself, Tananami, Shlosha Darot Lamata Dida. Then he went and took the 3 generations going down from his wife.
Going up.
Going up.
Going up from his wife.
No, Lamata.
No.
He said that.
Tananami Shlosha Darot Lamata. Lamata is going down.
Her daughter.
Okay, that's the point. Dida, from the man's wife. So he did 3 going down from himself. Then he went to his wife, 3 going down from her. Okay? Va'ide detana shlosha darot lamata dida. And once he taught the 3 generations descending from her, Tana Shlosha Darot Lamala Dida. Then he taught the 3 generations going up from her. That's the point. So what happens? Okay. So then the Gemara goes on. Vatana Achoto. Then he went, from him, and taught about his maternal sister. Va'achot imo, and the sister of his mother. The Krove Atzmo, because again, they are blood relatives to him. Okay? Va'ide da'ire be'isur achva, and since now he's talking about the prohibitions regarding his sister, Tana achot ishto, then he started talking about this sister of his wife. Okay? Now the Gemara acknowledges here at this point, Ubadinhu, and rightfully, says the Gemara, Dilikadma lekalato mikme eshet achiv shelo haya ba'olamo. If that's the case, says the Gemara, rightfully he should have put sooner the daughter-in-law before he discussed the issue of the wife of the brother that was not born, existing at the same time. Okay. All right, that's the right. Okay. So, in other words, what the Gemara is, the lo mishum kurva hu da'asira. Why? Because in that case of that brother, okay, it is not an issue of blood relation that because there's the isur there. That's generally because of the general rule of Yibum, that since he wasn't in existence at the time, okay, therefore it doesn't apply to that person. Okay, so we see here that based on this second approach of the Gemara, that's Kiruve Atzmo, he went to his wife, down and then up, then the brother, okay, to sister-in-law, okay, then, right, then he came to the one not alive, then to the Kala. That was the issue. Okay, so the Gemara is still not happy with the fact of explaining the order in that manner. All right? Ela, aide da'ire be'isur achva. But rather, says the Gemara again, since now we're dealing and brought in the prohibition of regarding a sister, right? Tana Eshet Achiv Shelo Haya Ba'olamo. Then he already went then and taught in regarding the wife of the brother who wasn't in existence at that time. Vahadar Tana Kalato, and afterwards he taught in regards to his daughter-in-law. Okay, let's look now at this. The Gemara continues. Okay, with the following example. All right, what about exceptions of Yibum? Okay, where you might have a situation where the obligation, where it's forbidden for Yibum.
All of these are forbidden.
Okay.
Why does it say butter instead of?
Well, we'll get to that in a second. Okay, we'll get to that. Okay, so the Gemara picks up now. All right, Umay area the Tana Potro. We now move to another topic. We're not talking about the order of the categories of women. Our Mishnah said, okay, that they're potrot, that they use the word exempt. Okay, why did the Mishnah use that language? Maybe the Mishnah should have said different language. Okay, what language could that have been? Okay, all right. Maybe we should have used the word oser, forbidden, and let's see why. All right. So what happens? Umay area detana potrot. Okay, what is the right? Another reason then. Okay, that they didn't litnei osrot. Okay, shouldn't they have used the word forbidden? Okay, in this case, what do we see here? All right, a question of more than just language, but it's an issue of language as well. Itana osrot. Had the Mishnah used the language of osrot, hava mean it's possible I might have thought to say, asur liyabem aval michlatz chalza, that it's prohibited. In other words, there's an exemption regarding Yibum, but there's still an obligation. This issue of zikah is so strong that something must still be done to break that attachment. And therefore, I might have thought to argue that it's still necessary to do something, namely chalitza. Remember, we suggested that there were two views. Was there really only one mitzvah here? Okay, and it's either yibum or chalitza, two sides of the same coin, so to speak? Or do we say, no, that's not the case, that they're two separate mitzvot? One mitzvah is yibum, when it's appropriate, okay, and one mitzvah is chalitza, when that's appropriate. And if I hold that opinion, and in a few moments we're going to get to the view of Abba Shaul, we're going to see that he clearly makes a very clear statement. What he suggests is that perspective. Okay, so what happens? All right, so the Gemara picks up and continues. All right, that we might have Kamash Malan comes to teach us, no, that's not the case. Why? Because we say Velitne Asura Lachlotz. Should we therefore have taught it to say that one is prohibited to do chalitza? And if there's a connection between the two, if they're two sides, if that's viewed, the two sides of the same coin, once I say it's forbidden to do chalitza, I would automatically know that therefore it's forbidden to do yibum as well. Okay, that's if I hold that particular perspective. My kavin, says the Gemara. So what then is the situation? Maybe we have another reason not to use the word osrot. All right, alma lo. Okay, alama lo. And why is that not? Imata omer choletzet. Because if you simply say the word choletzet, according to that two sides of the coin view, yabemet, then maybe I would say there are situations where he has to do yibum. Maybe that's the point, right? So what happens here, all right? therefore I get to this other issue. Kevan de b'makom mitzvah. Okay, since we are in a situation of saying yibum is a mitzvah, okay, who da asira tzara, and that therefore I might think, well, that applies only to that particular woman, and as far as her co-wife goes, that co-wife would still be forbidden. Okay, da asira tzara, v'shelo b'makom mitzvah sharia. And then when it's not an issue of a mitzvah, permitted. Mishum hachi tani potrot. Okay, and therefore I might argue in that situation as well, that's why I teach potrot instead of asuro. Okay, because it's going to tell me ultimately, as our Mishnah did, that it's not just the situation of that woman, but it's also the situation applying to the co-wives as well. Okay, so the Gemara now continues and raises the following. Umai iria detane min hachalitza umin hayibum. So why specifically does our Mishnah then phrase it in the order of chalitza and davibum? Okay, litne, let it teach min hayibum v'chude. Why not simply teach it from yibum, and then we would know again, if it's two sides of the same coin, it's both exempt them from yibum and chalitza. Okay, otherwise, or perhaps itane mina yibum hava amina. If I had taught only the example of yibum there, okay, what's the point? Hava amina michlatz chalza yibumi lo miyabma. Okay, again, I would have thought perhaps chalitza is necessary. Okay, but yibum, that's not necessary.
Even though you're not allowed to do yibum, you have to do chalitza.
You have to do something to break the zika. That's the point. Again, I raised it earlier. Okay, and so therefore some act was necessary. So even if I say you don't do yibum, I would still need to do an act. What act would that be? Chalitza, because I might hold the other opinion that they're both mitzvot. Okay, when you don't do yibum, you must do chalitza because that's the mitzvah there, and not two sides of the same coin. Okay, so the Gemara tells us kamash malan. That's not the case. Namely, here's our principle that it may be coming to teach us. What? Kol ha'oleh liyibum oleh lechalitza. By the way, interesting, just a quick language issue. Notice that the Gemara says kol ha'oleh. It doesn't say nafal. It doesn't use the language that they fall to yibum. We raised that again yesterday. Why that language? All right. And the only explanation I could come up with was that ideally the oldest brother was the one that had the obligation. If he for some reason could not, because he was dead, for example, couldn't fulfill it, it then fell down to a lower brother. Okay, right? So that was the only concept I could come up with.
Can
So-
she pick any brother she wants for yibum? No.
It goes in age order.
But it's based on the status of the brothers. Okay? Starts with the oldest,
She may like one brother over the other.
that
She
may
doesn't
be,
have any
but that's
say.
not her choice, Sid. That's not her choice.
It's not her choice.
No.
And then she can refuse to do chalitza. She doesn't want to do with that brother.
She could refuse yibum, and he would have to do chalitza.
Right. Okay.
No, but
Okay.
before that, if the oldest brother says no, they ask the next brother.
Right, right,
Then
that's-
one of them does chalitza.
Well, but the point is, if she could refuse, all right, then it comes up to the next.
She's not allowed to refuse. She has no choice in the matter.
Who said so? She sure
I'm-
can refuse.
I'm not sure.
Where did you ever hear that? I refuse. I don't want to marry the guy. I hate him.
Sounds a little bit
What's
more
her
like
reason?
a domain.
I'm not sure. Okay, I have to go back over my material. Okay. Yes,
Once a brother does chalitza, they're all finished.
They're all
the brothers are all the other brothers are done,
That takes up the zika from everybody.
right?
Correct.
Okay, that's why that issue of is the Zika the important thing, okay? And therefore, again, coming back to whether it's a single mitzvah with both sides,
The Gemara
or,
here says it's one mitzvah.
okay? So this piece in the Gemara now is trying to clarify that issue, okay? What is there to Kamash Malan? Okay, it's gonna basically tell us what is the significance of the Zika. Okay, Kol ha'oleh liyibum oleh lechalitza, v'kol she'eino oleh liyibum eino oleh lechalitza. Okay, that's the point.
Right.
All right. Okay, now we go on then. What happens if we're going to, if that's our operating procedure, okay? And we're seeing and we're arguing that it's the significance of the Zika, the family attachment. It's not just marriage to Shimon because he happens to be the oldest, okay? And she has no relationship with Levi and Ruvain, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, that's the example I gave you why I only did 3 brothers, okay? Or others, 4, 5, 6, 8, whatever, okay? It's the relationship to the family. That, if that's the case, then what happens? V'litnei mina yibum u'mina chalitza. The Gemara comes back and says, then again, why did our Mishnah say chalitza first and not yibum? Okay? So again, inami, or simply say mina chalitza lechuda, or simply say if you're going to argue again that they're 2 separate items, okay, then simply say chalitza, and we would know as well.
One.
Okay, say the one item. That's it. Abba Shaul haya, Abba Shaul he. That's the view of Reb Abba Shaul. The Amar mitzvat chalitza kodemet lemitzvat yibum. Okay, that he says the mitzvah of chalitza is preferable to the mitzvah of yibum. So here, Abba Shaul is telling us he holds that they're 2 separate mitzvot. Number 1. Number 2, he also holds, okay, that yibum should really only be done l'shem mitzvah, okay? And if you look in Art Scroll 3A3, note number 26, you'll see that it has an extensive note on that issue, as does Torah, I believe, as well, okay? But I wanted to point out the Art Scroll note there was in a little more detail. Okay, now, so the Gemara now asks another issue. Are you no longer saying that Zika is the important element? Is that the issue? Minyana deresha. Now we're going to get to a new topic. Okay, you told me 15. But we know in the section of Arayos, there's more than 15 categories of women mentioned, right? What about the others? And if we have the others, again, do I say that Yibum only impacts that one single particular example of the brother's wife? Or is it going to impact on other examples of arayos as well? Okay. So the Gemara now goes on. Minyana deresha, the number that's given at the beginning of the Mishnah, l'me'utei to exclude what? Uminyana de seifa. And again, at the very end of the Mishnah, okay,
these.
all right, where it refers to the v'chol, right, right, v'chol, right, it has that language. Okay, I was just looking for it quickly in the Mishnah, but it's there. All right, What about that? Lema'ute mai, to exclude what? Says the Gemara. Right, going on. Right, lema'ute derav v'derav asi. Okay, to exclude the views of Rav and Rav Asi, because Rav had a view that Sarat Sota is Asura, and Rav Asi has a view that Sarat Ilonit is Asura. That's important because we just said in our Mishnah that if you do Yibum or Chalitza to the widow, one widow, I'm going to use the word now, co-widows are taken care of as well. Okay? To exclude their views. L'Rav u'Rav Asi, l'Ma'ute Mai, to exclude what? If they're each going to hold the view of the other, okay? In other words, they agree with each other, all right? Sarat mam'enet. Okay, therefore, if they agree with each other's view, then what does it come to? A Mishnah come to exclude? It comes to exclude the co-wife of a young girl who was a mam'enet, who was refusing. And one might even say that it comes to exclude, namely Rav Asi's view, that one who takes back his divorced wife. Right? And if they don't hold together the same viewpoints, right? They don't share the same view. One will exclude the view of his colleague, okay? Okay, and ot sarat mam'enet, ot sarat machzir grushato. Okay, will come to exclude either the co-wife of the refuser or the co-wife of the one who takes back his divorced wife. Okay, so that's the point. So again, the Rav who was teaching the issue of the Sota Asura, and Rav Asi was the Sarah of the Ilonis. Right, so again,
This is
so
a
the-
question.
so the point is, does that number 15 exclude their views? Okay. Now, the Rav Asi, let Ninu. So that the Gemara says, well, let's include the view of these two gentlemen. Okay?
It's still Rav and Ravasi. They're asking why
Right.
don't they have the following view?
We'll see. All right. My shot was different. Okay. Namely, Lafi she'ena b'tzarat tzara. All right. Because maybe here, okay, could be with the death of the sister, frees him from the other sister. Mina hani mili. How do we know this? Okay. So you could have a situation, okay, where there could be an example where I'm just thinking real quick that the girl who was the minor died, and therefore you still have a co-wife to that man.
Right.
Okay, what's her status to marry? Okay, boom, chalitza, etc., etc. Okay, so the Gemara asks, "Mina hani mili?" The Tanu Rabbanan. Why? Because we have our pasuk. It teaches, "Isha el achota lo tikach." It clearly spells out, okay, that in regards to one's wife, regarding her sister, one cannot take. Why? Litzror legalot ervata aleha bechayeha. Okay, to cause them to be rivals, and rivals there, remember, I'm translating particularly as plural. Okay, in order to, etc. all right, during her lifetime, implying the pasuk with the death of the sister, okay, will allow one, the death of one sister would allow one to marry the other sister. Okay. So it says, Aleha ma Talmud lomar. What is there for that coming to teach us? Lafishane amar yivama yavo aleha. Why? Because we have the pasuk that says that the yivama, okay, has relations with him. Okay. So what happens? Shomea ani afilu be'achat mikol arayot ha'amurat b'Torah hakatuv medaber. This would seem to imply, okay, says the Gemara, right, that since the statement in Dvarim dealing with Yibum, okay, the Yivama, okay, it does not just simply apply to the pasuk of Isha el Achota, but maybe it applies to other examples, okay, based on the phrase Aleha. V'ne'amar lahalan Aleha, and it says then Aleha. Ma lahalan b'makom mitzvah, aptan b'makom mitzvah. So what am I saying here? Okay. So the question is, even in the face, or even in the example of Yibum, to what degree does the prohibition of erva directly still apply? That's the point. Is it only, does Yibum only override the prohibition of erva in this one particular case, or does it apply in other cases as well? Okay. And how do I know? Va'amar Rachmana lo tikach. And there the Torah specifically spells it out that you cannot take. Okay? Va'ein li elahi. But that, all right, says the Gemara. That tells me specifically Yibum applies in that case. Okay? What about Sarata? What about co-wives? Sarata minayin. Okay? So by the way, that would seem to tell us also that perhaps the prohibition is due to the status of the woman and not to the issue of the family. Okay? And that's important. Okay? So we're going to see that in just a moment. Okay? Talmud Lomar Litzror. But our text said, in regards to that example, to create, right, rival wives. Ve'emli, right? Co-wives. Ve'emli elat sarata. Okay, so fine. Based on the fact that I had that drasha, let's roar, right, implying plural. Okay, what about that? Okay, but our Mishnah said not just a co-wife, co-wives of co-wives, right? Sarat sarata minai. Talmud lomar, and here's our drasha, letzror velo letzur. That gives us co-wives of co-wives. Ve'en li ela achot isha. So again, the Gemara accepts that based on the fact that we say that applies in that particular situation. Shar arayot minayin. What about all the other examples of arayot? Right? Amart, you're going to say, right? You could say ma'achot isha miyuchedet. Right? So here we're going to build a binyan av. Right? We're going to say what is common characteristics associated with the achot isha. Okay? Whereas he says, since you're going to say ma achot isha miyuchedet, that she has certain unique characteristics, namely, shehi erva, that she is one of the forbidden relations. V'chayavin al zdona karet, and the punishment when it's done, the bizadon is karet. Va'al shigigata chatat, and if it's done as a shgaga, that's bringing a chatas. Va'asura liyabem, and another characteristic is that she is prohibited in regarding yibum. Okay, afkol shehi erva. So likewise, other examples of erva, the chayavin al zdona karet, where the punishment zadon is karet, va'al shigigata chatat, and the punishment with the shgaga is bringing a chatas, asura liyabem, and therefore it's also prohibited to do yibum. Ve'ein li elahem, but I have then only these. Sarotehen minayin, their co-wives, what about them? Again, I'm going to say with a binyan av. Amarta ma'achot isha miyuchedet, the same way that the sister's wife is unique in that what? Shehi erva, that she's an erva. V'chayavina zdona koret, and zadon punishes by koret. V'ashkigata chatat, and a shgaga means bringing a chatas. Va'asura liyabem, and she is forbidden for yibum. V'tsarata asura, and her co-wife is forbidden. Afkol shehi ava. So likewise, all those others that are erva, v'chayavina zdona karet, v'al shkigata chatat, v'asura liyabem, sarata asura. Okay, right? All of those others. Mikan amru chachamim. Based on this, the sages then said, Chamesh yisrei nashim potrot sarotehen, v'tsarot sarotehen min hachalitza umin hayibum ad sof haolam, until the end of the world. Okay, so that serves as the basis then in that case. All right, let's try to finish up. Says the Gemara, Shechol shani marbe af sheish arayot chamurot me'elam. Maybe I want to add 6 more examples of erva, okay, where there's even more stringent punishments than these. All right, shayut sarotein asurot, and I'm going to say in that case, okay, with those 15, you're saying the co-wives can be taken care of. With these 6, I'm going to say maybe not. All right? Amart, you're going to say here, Ma achot ishto, again, binyanav, miuchedet shehi erva, v'chayavin al zdona karet, v'al shkigata chatat, v'efshar linaseh la'achim, and it's possible that she may marry one of the other brothers. But in these other 6, okay, she can't marry any of the brothers in the family. That's the point. Va'asura liyabem, v'tsarata asura. And she's prohibited regarding yibum, and her co-wives are forbidden. Afkol shehi erva, v'chayavin al zdona. Okay, v'karet, v'ashkigata chata. Okay, so in other words, she in these 6, okay, not only is she forbidden to him, she's forbidden to any of the other brothers as well. Okay, so you could have a situation where we've said that she's forbidden to one brother, okay, but not forbidden to one of the other brothers.
His sister's wife's sister.
Okay, that would be the classic example. Okay, all right. There are other examples too we could come up with. All right. Ve'afshar linaseh la'achim va'asura liyabem tzarata asura yatzu sheish arayot chamurot me'elu. Okay. Do we exclude then those other 6? Right. Ho'il de'i afshar linaseh la'achirim, and here we're spelling it out now. Since it's not possible for him to marry the other brothers, right? Lanaseh lachirim, tsuroteyan mutarot. Their co-wives are permitted. She'ein sarah ela me'ach, that there is no co-wife except for brother. And what do we have? Hazara shamanu, onesh minayim. Warning, here we have the warning. In Vayikra 18:18, we have the warning. Onesh minayim, where is the punishment? Amakra. So we have the pasuk that says as follows: Ki kol ish asher ya'aseh mikol hatoevot v'gomer. Okay, what happens? V'gomer ta'ama dichtav rachmana aleha. Because again, we have the pasuk aleha. Okay, ha lav hachi. Okay, if that's not the case, hava amina. Achot isha miyabemet ma'itama. What's the reasoning? Okay, that right, the amrinin ate aseh v'dache lo ta'aseh. We can't have a positive aseh, and it overrides the lo ta'aseh. But that is not going to be the final discussion in the Gemara, as we're going to stop there today, because we're going to pick up there tomorrow morning and see what is that really the argument, okay? And does that only apply to certain kinds of lavim?
Shkoach.
Okay.
Thank you, Ken.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Take care. Rabbanan Kaddish.
Amen.
Amen.
Rico.